Hi everybody. Right, we're in Oldham. A lot of people still about, so I've got to be careful where I film, but that's not going to stop me. As you see, there's quite a few folk about, but we're going to film Parliament Square today. Now, Parliament Square is where the town hall is that you're looking at now. On the side of the town hall you've got the Odeon, and then you've got the TJUs. We're going to touch on this place as well. This is the Parliament Square Cafe and Deli now, but this used to be a thriving... So this is Parliament Square Deli, Cafe and Deli now, but it used to be a thriving hotel. I'm going to cover that in a bit. But the first place I want to go to, just up by the smoke yard. Can't you get used to this bleeding thing?
Sure, I've seen you on YouTube.
Right, so this area's undergone quite a few changes over the years. You've got the smoke yard. That's a brilliant place. Gorgeous burgers in there. Not the cheapest, but they are definitely worth it. And then just coming up to Greaves's. Now, this building that you're looking at here, this isn't the original Greaves's. In fact, the original pub, which was knocked down and replaced by Oldham Brewery. Now, this building was built in 1925. Excuse me. There's a beautiful door in the front of it there. I don't know if that's original. I don't think it is. But anyway, the Greaves's. So it started out, it's had various different names. The Nelson Inn, in sort of commemoration of Nelson's battles and, battle wins. And at one time it was called the Church Inn. And it's had several owners over the years, I should expect. In fact, one of the owners... We're going to go over to this pub very shortly, the old Hare and Hounds, because there's a story there. It's in the newspapers at the moment. It's basically closed up. And rumour has it, the roof's fallen in. So we're going to see if we can see a sight of that. But yeah, just going back to the Greaves, this has got a really interesting story. So, as I said, the original building stood here since 1754, I think it was, when it was first made into a beer house. Now, what typically happened back then, I've mentioned this on my pub videos before, what typically happened back then is the landlords would brew their own beer, and, you know, people would go because the landlord had nice beer and, that sort of stuff. Now, this particular place could house people. It was a hotel. It actually became the Greaves after Edward Greaves, who took it on. And he decided he didn't like the name the Nelson. Sorry, I'm still struggling with this bleeding gimbal, trying to get to grips with it, but we'll get there. Yeah, he said he didn't like the name Nelson, and he wanted to call it after himself, so that's when it became the Greaves. Just look at that above the door, because it's actually spectacular. The architecture and the workmanship that's gone into this building. Look at that. And then if you look just above the windows, I'm going to try and zoom, but my gimbal doesn't seem to like me zooming. Look at them. So yeah, so Greaves had it for a number of years. Let's just come back down to ground. So Greaves had it for a number of years, and ran it very successfully. There was a couple of instances in 1868. It's noted that the police attended, not this building, but the old building. They attended it, and they reported back that there was a great deal of prostitution going on in the pub, and there was also a lot of thieves who used to hang around in this place. It was the most undesirable place probably that you could go to in Oldham. If you didn't want to be around that. I mean, if you wanted to pick up a lady for the evening and pick up some hot stuff, i.e. something stolen, then maybe it was the place you wanted to be. But yeah, it's had many a story, this. Like I say, it's still stood here this day. I think it closed down from being a pub around about, I was saying 10 years ago. Probably not even that, actually. I remember going in for a few pints a few years back. It wasn't that busy. But now, let's just have a look. So it's now become Cafe East. I've not actually seen it open. I'm sure it will open. I mean, let's be cheeky and see if we can look in through the window. I hope there's no one sat there having the tea. Let's see what we can see. Actually can't see anything in there, can we? Anyway, that's the Greaves. Still not a pub. So later on in its years, it was decided that they were going to sell the pub to the Oldham Brewery, and that's what they did. Now, Oldham Brewery, at that particular point in time, they had a spate where they wanted to... we're going to have a look at the side of it, actually, because it is a beautiful building. Oldham Brewery went through a spate where they were basically knocking buildings down and rebuilding them. Now, they actually did a wonderful, wonderful job. They actually did a wonderful job. They built some beautiful buildings, like the Farmers, which my cousin's got. The Minders, which is now closed down. The one on Ashton Road, the Hathershaw. You know, they really did build some beautiful pubs. I mean, look at this one. Look at that on the side. The turrets, the detail. And there's a crest up there, but there's nothing on it. And I really, really, really like this. I think it's beautiful. So yeah, Oldham Brewery knocked down the old Greaves. You'll have seen or are looking at the picture now, and then rebuilt this one. And again, I would say this is an Oldham landmark. I mean, you know, it'd be a great loss if this building was lost. But luckily it has been repurposed. And that's that. Right, I think what we're going to do now is make our way across the road and go and have a good look round the Hare and Hounds, which has been stripped. Right, so what we're going to do now, we're going to head off up to Parliament Square. And we're going to take a look at the... Interesting. Yeah, we're going to take a look at the town hall itself. And we're going to look at the statues and other bits and pieces that are around this area. I have featured the town hall on the channel before, but I'm still going to show you the blue plaque that you can see up there. I'm not going to bother to go up to it because you have seen it before, but that is the plaque that's been dedicated to the well, Sir Winston Churchill. Now, interestingly, Dave, one of my subscribers, gave me a book. Now, the book is 118 years old, and it's about the history of Oldham, written back in 1903. So think about that for a minute. The history of Oldham, written back in 1903, 118 years ago. Now, to put it into context, Winston Churchill was a young man, and he was first MP for Oldham, wasn't he? 1900 to 1906. And the author of the book went to, I think he was called James Middleton, went to the likes of Winston Churchill and said, look, I'm struggling to get this book printed. Will you give me a donation? And if you do, I'll give you a copy of the book. So Winston Churchill, among many other prominent Oldhamers, actually gave money for this book to be printed. Now, to buy it, it's a ridiculous amount of money, and I was blessed because Dave was kind enough to give me a copy. He had a couple of copies because one of his ancestors, very famous Oldham family, actually gave him, well, he actually got 2 copies because of the amount of money that they'd donated. And yeah, he very kindly gave me a copy of the book, and I absolutely love it. It's one of my most treasured Oldham possessions. It's got so much information in it, and I've not even touched the iceberg with it. You know, I mean, I can really delve into Oldham's history with that book, and yeah, I'm just delighted to own it. But anyway, so that's that. And then this one is about Oldham's Charter of Incorporation as a borough. So it became a borough, and that was granted by Queen Victoria on the 13th of June 1849. And it was received at this building on the 14th of June 1849. So that was granted by Queen Victoria. Now, she was the longest reigning monarch until Queen Elizabeth II, who we've got at the moment. Queen Victoria died at a ripe old age. I think she was in her 70s or 80s. She got put on the throne very early, didn't she? And she died in 1901, so 1 year after Winston Churchill became MP of Oldham. Now, you'll notice throughout that I'm putting in pictures, because I found some wonderful pictures of this area that I wanted to share with you to show how it's changed over the years. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go to this building over here in the distance, and I'm going to tell you all about that, what it used to be. Right, everyone, we've had a bit of a technical problem, so we've actually gone back to the old classic way that I film. The reason being that effing thing that I bought is just ridiculous to use, and it's just like crashed on me or done something. In short, it's just spinning round and round and round and won't do anything, so it's going back to Amazon, and I'm going to go back to the drawing board. In fact, Clarky at the Urban Collective, if you haven't seen his channel, I recommend you go to it immediately, let him know I sent you, and subscribe. You'll love his videos. But he was giving me a bit of advice the other day on suitable filming equipment to buy, so I think I'm probably going to take him up on that one, or should I say I'm going to take his advice on that one. Yeah, I couldn't concentrate filming because it was going crazy every 5 minutes. The reason why I've just popped up this way is I want to show you, I've got an old picture of what this area looked like in the 50s. In fact, just about where I'm stood now, facing the town hall, there was some chaps sat, and there's a picture of this street as it was then. In fact, it incorporated the bank on the right. So you can see now the before and the after exactly how it looked all those years ago. And that was the Williams Deacon Bank, I think. It's in the picture, you'll see it. I don't know what they're going to be doing with this nowadays. When they built the town hall, I think it cost about £2,000 to build, which back then in the mid-1800s was a ridiculous amount of money. Do you see the two lampposts that are outside? Well, those aren't the original lampposts, and I know because, again, with the book that Dave gave me, I've been able to see what they looked like in the early 1900s, and they had different tops. Plus, they've been moved around a lot over the years. But it was decided that as well as having such a grand front on the town hall, they were going to pay to have two lamps commissioned, and actually the original two lamps that stood on the street cost £25 to install. Can you imagine? The other thing that I wanted to point out, if you can see here, like obviously this is the square where TJU's is, and you've got the entrance to the shopping centre just there on your right. But years ago, I mean, I'm sure quite a lot of people watching the channel will know this, but there might be one or two of you that don't. This is where the buses used to run up, and it was way up into the 90s or even the early 2000s that they were doing that. But one of the things, I was just stopped before by a guy who's seen the channel a couple of times. He was talking to me and we were talking about this. Who remembers the chap who used to sit just about here? Oh, in fact, I think it was here. And he used to work for the Oldham Chronicle, and he used to sell the newspapers from there. Do you remember him? And he had like this tiny little hut, and he used to sell from there. I remember him distinctly. I think I probably bought the Cron one or two times as well. Now I'm not being held back by that gimbal. I'm going to go back down to the Hare and Hounds. I've actually filmed it once, but I'm going to film it again because I didn't like how I filmed it last time. You can't do anything. That gimbal as well, you can't zoom in. It's not the gimbal's fault, it's an excellent piece of equipment, but it has just sort of crashed on me, and it doesn't do what I need it to do. And you know, I like to zoom in on things, and it was not letting me do that. So we're going to make our way down to the Hare and Hounds. Now, what I was saying was the Hare and Hounds are stood in Oldham. This particular pub that we're going to has stood in Oldham since 1804, I believe it was. Now, it's had many different landlords over the years. The most notable landlord that it had was a guy who basically he was a hunting fanatic. He used to have a load of, you know, like on the horses and with the beagles and stuff, and he had loads of dogs, and he knew every single one by name, and they all loved him and they treated him like pets. Now, he was quite a bit of a strange character. He was quite eccentric, but well thought of. And then when he passed away, they put a painting of him in Oldham Art Gallery. And as far as I'm aware, unless they've taken it off display, it's still there to this day. If they've not got it on display, they've certainly got it in the catalogue. But I just want to zoom in on this, on the features on the building, because it's absolutely beautiful. Look at those windows. And like the lead underneath, or stone or whatever it is, it's all patterned. And then you've got these absolutely stunning lamps that are just above the door. Now, you'll notice, if you look at the door just on the other side, or the underneath should I say, can you see where they've actually built in Hare and Hounds? Now, interestingly, the guy that was the hunter, he got the building, I would say, in the mid-1800s, so it's unusual really that such a keen hunter would have it, and the building was already called that, if you know what I mean. But let's have a closer look, because I want to show you the steps. We've got this beautiful old ironwork. And then look at these steps. And you see how worn they are. And that wear is off people going in and out the pub to go and get themselves a pint. Now, for a building that's sort of, you know, 210, 15 years old, makes you wonder how many pints this has actually pulled in its time. Now, the reason why I'm filming this today as well is it's all over the Facebook and newspapers that this is going to be closed. Basically, it's closed. And one of my subscribers mentioned before that he said it's the roof's fallen in. So, to be honest, I can't really see anything obvious as to the roof going in, i.e. when you look up and if you look at them old windows there, and that's really old glass, you won't be able to see it on the camera, I don't think, but you can tell they're really old glass because it's all wobbly. But yeah, anyway, I can't see any obvious light, you know, through the top, but that doesn't mean to say that the roof hasn't gone, because obviously the ceiling could be hiding that. Interesting fact about glass, did you know that it's not solid? Do you know that it moves constantly? But it's that slow moving that you don't actually see it, and it takes hundreds and thousands of years for it to actually do anything. That's what I was told anyway. I don't know if someone was having me on. And there's the old drop. Or maybe it's in the back. But interestingly, when this was open in the 1800s, it had room for 3 stables in the back, 3 horses in the back, excuse me. It had stables for 3 horses. And it could offer overnight accommodation to anyone who wanted to stay to a certain extent.